Of course. Okay. So here we're going to talk about the idea of simplicity and when it applies to faith. It's actually a very good concept, and it's a good reminder. So here David HaMelech says in Tehillim, King David says in Welcome Mara, King David says in Tehillim in Psalms, perfect innocence and uprightness will guard me, for I hope to you. Okay, so what is this talking about? So Rabbi David Sutton says that if we had the choice of being known as as simple or smart, which one would we choose? And many of us would automatically think, oh, well, smart is a better thing, right? But there is an advantage to this, the attribute of being a simple person and the language of the Torah. So when it comes to our faith, temimus, simplicity, or tam, right? Ishtam, a person who's simple. Simplicity is a great compliment. It means that we believe in Hashem unquestioningly, okay? Like the yeshiva in Chabad, the classic yeshiva, like I was having a conversation with my son the other day, like you have such a merit to learn in Tamchei Tamimim, right? Like this idea of being a tam is being so devoted to Hashem in such a simple way that it defies the logic. You don't need logic. You just need Hashem. There are no questions. Okay. So we don't need to know why he does what he does. That's the idea of tamimos, of simplicity. I don't need to know why you do what you do. I just love you. I just want to be attached to you. We trust that he has a plan and that it's a good plan and that we have a part in it. This is the perfect innocence that David HaMelech claims for himself. Okay. So again, he says, perfect innocence and uprightness will guard me, for I hope to you. Now he speaks also about uprightness. Yashar. Along with that, David says that he's yashar, he's straight. He doesn't look for detours and ways around his obligations to Hashem. He doesn't make sophisticated calculations, but rather walks a straight path. Now, I was learning with somebody yesterday, chapter 4 of Shar Bitachon, of the Gate of Trust, right, where Rabbi Novachia talks about this and gives us the analogy and the example of the person. Part of the test of wealth is that a person might start deviating. They might think that if I do things a little bit slanted or crooked, I'm going to be better ahead, right? And he also gives the analogy of or the example of a person who's in the desert and there's no water, and bitter water appears, a source of bitter water, and he takes the bitter water, but the Rabbi Novachia says, but had he known that there was going to be clean water 2 minutes later, right, he would have not taken the bitter water. So the idea is, if you trust in Hashem that he has everything in place guaranteed for your exact best, and you can be patient and wait for him trustingly, because again, it's not a pain. It shouldn't be a painful wait. When a person trusts completely at this level that we're trying to, aim at, okay, of course, we're all working constantly. It's a work in progress. But this idea, this bitachon, when we have it in a very strong level of bitachon, the waiting is actually not a bitter waiting. It's waiting with a knowing. Okay, so I have to wait, but it's like if your child gets engaged and you have to wait 3 months for the wedding. Okay, but the wedding is happening, right? Like, it's in your head. It's not a painful waiting. It's already there. Right. So we talked about so many times about how we get desperate and we struggle with God's timing. I think a lot of the avoda is to have this simplicity, this tamimus of knowing that everything is exactly the way it needs to be, and that Hashem's timing is perfect, because again, he is all knowing and he's strong and he's dependable and he's attentive 24/7, right? All those 7 qualities that we learn in the Gate of Trust. He's wise. He's close to us, as close as any being can be. He knows me from beginning to end. He's extremely generous. All these things, right? Then obviously the waiting shouldn't be an agony. Should be okay. It's there. It's there. I'm going to turn the corner and it's going to be there. I don't know when. I don't know how. But it's not my business to know when or how. I just have to be happy and enjoy the moment as is, because obviously I'm being taken care of. And it, even if from my perception, the way I would want it to be, it's not, okay? So that's the contentment and the simplicity, that I don't have to say, well, he hasn't done it, he didn't do it for my brother, he didn't do it for my sister-in-law, who's to say that he's going to do it for me? And we start asking all these questions about the perfect Hashem, when really this person with Tamimos that David HaMelech is describing himself as doesn't have those questions. They are content, just like the baby in his mother's arm is at this moment, okay? So this person doesn't make sophisticated calculations, and he doesn't, because he doesn't have he's not a person to make sophisticated calculations. He's not going to go and try to stray and finagle a whole plan in order to maybe come ahead, because there's no coming ahead, because it's all Hashem's will. So who are you trying to outsmart? Instead, this person goes the straight path, does what he needs to do, and like it says in Torah Bitachon, he comes out better because he has a good life in this world and in the world to come. Whereas the person who tried to cut corners and do things in a crooked way, now, yeah, he might earn a buck or two, which, by the way, says the Torah Bitachon, he was going to get anyway. So he might as well had worked the clean way, and he would have the exact same money and had a world to come. So spiritually, he would have also gained. Materially, he was going to gain, because there's no way that from cutting corners, he's going to make more than he would have made anyway, because the amount that he was going to make is already destined. So therefore, you don't have to outsmart Hashem. You just have to do what you have to do in the straight and narrow way, and you're going to come ahead and win in this world and in the spiritual world, in the world to come. Okay. So this simple and straightforward faith, says David, will guard him. This is a big statement that's worth pondering, because sometimes we worry that if we do just exactly what we're supposed to do without loopholes and shortcuts, we're going to suffer, right? What we just talked about. And sometimes the Yetzer Hara comes and tells us, oh, what do you mean? The other guy, if they do this, and they're going to have more. We're never going to suffer. If Hashem tells us to do something, it's never going to harm us in our physical endeavors. It's never going to harm us. It's like that story that I told you, that famous letter of the man who needed to say Kaddish for his father, and he was a shochet. And shochtim, typically they travel for an extended period of time, especially in the olden days, where they have to be an extended period of time away from a community doing the shchita, doing the ritual slaughtering. And so he wrote a letter saying that he has to say Kaddish for his father. He lost his father. And could he rely on his brothers to say Kaddish for him, since he is in a place with no minyan, because he's away in his job, and his parnasa is in this place. This place is where he makes his livelihood as a shochet, and there's no minyan. So how is he going to say Kaddish? So the Rebbe says to him that yes, he should consult the Rav, and that according to halacha, he might rely on the leniency that if in the leniency, there is a leniency that if you have a brother who can do it for you and you can't do it, okay, so you can rely on that. And then the Rebbe adds, and I'll look for the exact letter and send it in the replay email. The Rebbe adds, I'm saying this because I don't know your level of bitachon. Because if you have bitachon, if you have strong bitachon, then you can stay and work where you are. You don't have to, I'm sorry, not stay and work, the opposite. You can leave that place and come to the place where when you have a minyan, and say Kaddish, and that's not going to interfere with your parnasa. Okay, so that's the concept. If you have bitachon, then you don't have to make these calculations. You understand that your spiritual service is not going to detract from your material service. So that's what the Rebbe is saying. If you have bitachon, then you can certainly leave where you are. It's not a question, and you're going to make the same. You don't have to stay where you are to make your parnasa. You can go fulfill your halachic obligation and do it. Now, there is an exception. So if you want, you can rely on the exemption. Okay. So that's that example. So here, let's see. For example, it might appear that the cutthroat businessman is the one who prospers, while the one who tries to treat his competitors with consideration loses out, right? And it seems like that in this world. We live in an upside down world. So it might seem that some of these people who are doing things maybe very aggressively, or maybe not according to Jewish law, or not according to it, just immorally or whatever, they're coming ahead. Logically, it would seem that this would have to be the case. One person is grabbing every advantage and the other is choosing to bypass some opportunities that strike him as unfair or immoral. But David HaMelech turns the tables. He says, not in spite of doing the right thing, but because of it, because of doing it, he knows that he can count on Hashem to take care of him. He's not going to lose. So you do the right thing, and Hashem is going to take care of you. Nothing, no mitzvah that Hashem gave you in this world is going to harm you. So again, a person by logic might say, well, if I keep Shabbat, I am not going to have money, right? How does it make sense? If I close my business on, let's say I work in retail, right? And it's my most profitable day. It doesn't make sense. But it actually makes sense, because Hashem wouldn't have given you Shabbat if it was going to hurt you. The reality is you can close the store and you're going to make the exact amount of money, and you're actually going to have a life. You're going to have a beautiful life, because you're actually going to have a family, because you're there with your family for Shabbat, right? So I was having a conversation recently also. There was a person who I knew who really wanted to pray with a minyan, and he wanted to learn in the morning, right? And learn in the morning and pray with a minyan and like a mensch, and then go to work, right? But the part of the struggle is that the financial pressure and the story that if I take time out of my day to actually do this, it's gonna take time from my ability to make parnasa. But it's actually the opposite. The funny part is not only is that no, it's not going to hurt your ability to make a livelihood. It's that is actually the pipeline for you to make a livelihood. So it's like you're shortchanging yourself. If you actually would start already doing the mitzvahs that you need to do, that's going to open the pipeline for that thing that you feel is so stuck in your life. Okay. So it's actually a very interesting idea. It's a little bit reminds me of what's going on now in Eretz Israel, where this whole idea that the Israeli government doesn't want to fund the Torah scholars, and what they didn't want to provide the funding to the boys learning Torah, and that they should go to the army. And then I think yesterday it came out, I heard it today, but it came out that the community raised $100 million to continue to fund the yeshiva, so the boys learn Torah. The whole notion that the boys and the men should not sit and learn Torah so that they could go fight the war is completely twisted, because the soldiers in the front line depend on the Torah learning that's happening in the Beis Midrash. They work in, they're the same army. They're literally the same army. So you cannot pull the resources towards the spiritual work for the physical work and put them all to the physical work, because those boys in the front line, it's such a paradox, and it's so hard to comprehend when you don't have bitachon. But when you have trust in Hashem and you understand that the way Hashem made it is perfect, it's not a question. Of course, by logic, it would seem, no, you have to send all the financial resources to the army. You can't send it to people who are not going to the army. But these are not people who are not going to the army. These are precisely people who need to be doing that so that the army can succeed. So you see how like bitachon actually ends up informing everything. So it's actually very, very interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this chapter. I'm going to move over to chapter 29. Okay, so chapter 29, page 116. So here in this psalm, David says, by David, judge me, Hashem, for I have walked in my perfect innocence, and I have trusted in Hashem, I shall not waver. So again, this idea of simplicity, of innocence, okay, and how it's connected to trust. What is the simple, innocent way for a person to run his life? We might think that it means to completely depend on Hashem without lifting a finger to accomplish anything on our own, right? And we just learned about the man and Chumash, right? The man came from heaven, but you actually had to pick it up. and whoever had more trust, who was more connected to Hashem, it landed in their doorstep. You didn't have to walk, you didn't have to leave your house, right? And those who didn't have so much, they had to leave a little bit further. And those who were not connected to Hashem, they had to go farther away, and they had to actually grind the flour, the seeds, and all this stuff. But even the person who got it at their doorstep, they still have to pick it up and do something with it, right? We all, even if Hashem drops it, you have to do something. So that is the fifth condition. We said there are, according to the Shar Bitachon, the gate of trust, there are 5 things that need to be firmly in place in order for Bitachon to be real Bitachon. And one of those things, the fifth one, is effort. Because a person might assume, okay, so if everything is from Hashem, then why should I do anything? And Hashem created the world in a way that you have to do something. And it's because Hashem asked us to be a partner with him. So the effort is part of relying on Hashem. It's part of understanding that he is running the show, and we're relying on the way he runs the show. Okay? So that's why I have to show up and do that effort. Okay. So wouldn't the tzaddik be the one who waits for the check to arrive in the mailbox or the food to drop down from heaven? The person of simple faith does everything he can to help himself through normal channels and relies on Hashem to make it work out in his favor. He does not rely on miracles, right? So that's part of that section in Shar Bitachon. We're not allowed to rely on miracles, and we're also, there's a whole section that we learned, we're not allowed to be negligent. We can't say, well, when we were learning about applying bitachon to me, myself, and I, to my personal existence, well, a person could argue, you know what? If you're saying Shar Bitachon, that only that Hashem takes care of my existence, my health, the days of my life, then you could argue that I'm just gonna, I don't know, drink poisonous food and do crazy things. And it explains very clearly that you're not allowed to do that, and you're going to be held liable for taking those risks. And it talks extensively about that. Okay, so if he relies on a miracle without doing his ishtadlus, his effort, those miracles will not happen. When he experiences success, and by the way, it says in Shar Bitachon that if the miracle, so there's 2 alternatives. The miracle doesn't happen and the person gets, God forbid, hurt, right? And even an extreme, and then they're going to be held liable for that, okay, for causing harm to themselves. But if the miracle happens, it says very clearly, then that is going to be deducted from his merits. So he's actually hurting himself. So when he experiences success and he realizes that it is only the work of Hashem, then miracles can happen for him. So again, it's this concept of us down here being able to control the faucet, right? We open the faucet, our bitachon is opening the faucet. It's a mirror effect, right? When a person is completely aligned with the fact that it is Hashem who's running the show, then the faucet is open for him, and he sees the bounty of Hashem in a very clear, open, revealed way. His success can far exceed the bounds he could expect from his ishtadlus, because his ishtadlus, his effort, is nothing to him, because he understands so clearly. Meaning, not that it's nothing to him. He goes and he does it. He calls the clients and he calls the lawyers and he has the meetings and all the things, but he's an actor. We're supposed to be actors here in this play of nature. We're not supposed to give it chayus. We know it's all creation. It's all creation. It has no force. It has no independent force. The business has no independent force. The clients have nothing. It's all a tool in the hand of the wood chopper. Okay? It's all a tool in the hand of the wood chopper. It actually cannot hurt you, cannot benefit you, nothing. It's just something you use to serve Hashem. And then you use it to serve Hashem. You go through all these incredible motions. And as you're going through them, you're elevating the world. You're bringing light into the world. And Hashem is saying, great, you're my partner. You're doing all the things. I now get to shower you. So it's not the client who showered you. It's not your boss who showered you. It's not your manager. It's not your attorney who got you the deal. No. It's Hashem who's doing it while you're doing this performance in this theater called life. It's an awesome concept, actually. It's very liberating because you can actually enjoy life. It's actually very freeing. Okay. So as Rabbi Yeruchan Levovitz says, when we put forth our maximum effort, Hashem finishes the task. Okay. So I'm going to skip page 117 and I'm going to move to page 118 where it says, the second paragraph, a pasuk in Mishlei supports the idea that preparation and effort are in our hands. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that that David says I have walked in my perfect innocence and I have trusted in Hashem, I shall not waver. So here he's saying walking in the perfect innocence is being involved in the world, doing ishtadlus. And while he's doing his ishtadlus, he is trusting in Hashem and he's not wavering. So here it says in page 118 that there's a pasuk, a verse in Mishlei that agrees with this idea that we prepare and we do effort, and the result is the work of Hashem alone. So we have to do the puppet show, we have to engage in the thing, but Hashem takes care of the result. And the pasuk, the verse is, the horse is ready for the day of battle, but salvation is Hashem's. In fact, the salvation may not involve the horse at all, and yet the horse must be prepared. Just like your parnasa may not even come from your next deal, but you still have to call the client, call the lawyer, call the accountant, do all the things, and maybe that thing falls through or yields less than you were expecting, but then the money comes from an insurance policy, I don't know what, like, see, but you still have to prepare the horse. You still have to do whatever you have to do in this world, okay? So Rabbeinu Bachya cites this idea and explaining why the Jewish people went into the wilderness armed, right? Why would they go into wilderness? Why would they go into the desert armed? Hashem is taking care of them. They were prepared to fend off the Egyptians should they pursue them. Although God himself told them to leave, they felt it necessary to take along arms. But in the end, their arms didn't save them. Obviously, who saved them? Hashem. Hashem opened the sea for them. Hashem split the sea. They prepared for war and received a miracle. So we have to do whatever needs to be done in the natural world. You can't say, oh, I'm not going to open the bank account. I'm not going to save money. If there are bank accounts in the country that you live, and there is a certain financial system, you get educated, you do what you do. If there's doctors, you go and you follow the instructions you work with what's available in nature. Hashem is putting it in front of you for a reason. You have a responsibility, right? You go to get a job, a career, you do what you need to do. But that's not what's going to do it. You do it because it's serving Hashem. It's a way of service. It's a condition number 5 for you to be in a trusting relationship with Hashem. To have real bitachon is to be engaged in this world, okay? Okay. Balancing our need to do ishtadlus with our certainty that Hashem does not need any of it to bring us our Yeshua is one of life's biggest tasks, obviously, right? Because we are part of nature, right? Our involvement in nature is so convincing. It seems so clear that A plus B leads to C. And to suddenly shift to a paradigm of A plus B has zero to do with C. C can come from F, D, G, F, like from anywhere, because it's not a mathematical equation, because we're above that equation. Right. But but by the way, the more we are above it, the more we see success in whatever we're engaging in. So that's part of why that's part of why this is so important. And by the way, it's important not because, I always try to remind ourselves that this is not because I want to get something out of Hashem. That's a very low level. Like, I'll have bitachon so that things work out for me. The real level is the relationship. That's always the key word in our class, right? What kind of relationship do I have with my creator if there's no trust, right? If he's trusting in me, if he believes in me every single day, and gives me back my life every morning and gives me my existence every millisecond of my day, it's because obviously he knows I can do something. How dare I not rely on him who is sustaining me and giving me everything I have, right? It's not a healthy relationship. What kind of relationship is that if there's no trust? And trust needs to be an absolute. Otherwise, it's not real trust. And the only one who I can trust absolutely, evidently, is the entity who is actually foolproof. And we know from those 7 qualities by logic, only Hashem is foolproof. Everything else that I could try to put my trust in is actually very, very fickle. And because it's so fickle and we all subconsciously know it, then it makes us very nervous and very anxious, and people are popping pills and therapies and all the things because they're constantly putting their reliance and their emotional attachment is towards all the things in nature, their bank account, their investment portfolio, their doctor, their therapist, their business, their client, all the things that, again, they're not foolproof. So obviously you're going to be always very nervous because like they say in English, the shoe's going to drop every minute. But if I'm fully reliant constantly on something that is absolutely guaranteed foolproof with a perfect track record, as Hashem is, then I can be relaxed. Then I could actually be involved in the world without anxiety, right? Without the worry. Is it going to come? Is it not going to come? Is it going to happen? What do you mean? Of course it's going to happen. Like Michael Safdie says, you have a father who's a trillionaire. Like if that were the case, would you even worry? No, you know the money's there, right? So it's the same idea. Like if we actually understood who our father is, we would just be like making the whole thing a joke and going only straight to him. And saying, oh, you know my problems, you understand my problem. Here, you take it because you know exactly what to do with this challenge. I don't know. You send it to me. I'm trusting that you're going to help me through it. Okay. All right. So another idea, another approach. Oh, sorry, I skipped to, I think. Oh, yeah. The Sefer HaKedah says that David HaMelech teaches us how to pass the test of balancing Ishtadlus and Bitachon. And he states, in essence, save me, Hashem, because I did what I was supposed to do, but I didn't rely on my deeds. I relied on you. It is about this that David says, judge me, Hashem. So again, in the verse, he says, by David, judge me. Judge me in what? Judge me that I did what I had to do, but I was relying on you. I walked in my perfect innocence, and I have trusted in Hashem. I shall not waver. So that's the judge me, Hashem. Another approach to this idea is that it expresses the need to choose a path in our spirituality. Different types of learning, different types of davening, different types of chesed, and so forth resonate with different souls. We need to look for the simple and straight path that seems to be correct in our eyes. And once we do that, we still rely on Hashem to direct us to the path that is truly correct for us. And this is in so many things in life. You know, sometimes you're like, everything points that I have to move, and it's like, I don't know, is this the right thing? Is that the right thing? You know, and we get so tense about what's in front of us. But if it's clearly in front of us that that's what needs to be done, then you have to rely on Hashem. And like, it's so hard. I shared with you how I was so nervous not long ago, and something really hit me while I was also traveling. Right. And these moments of uncertainties hit us in such a way, and kind of like, we get all tangled up and we forget that Hashem is sending the thing in front of us, and it seems completely unexpected, and it seems not like what I wanted, right? And why do I have to move at this moment? Why do I have to move cities? And why do I have to, whatever it is that I need to do, we have to do what we need to do, and we have to trust in Hashem that is the best thing, because we can't make ourselves crazy, because he's running the show. We're not controlling it. So very often there are forks in the road and we don't know which choice to make. We have to apply our utmost effort to make those decisions, but ultimately we have to rely on Hashem to take us on the right path. Okay, so I want to do chapter 30. I rely on this, page 120, and there's a really, really fun, not fun, but really, really good story here. Okay, so here David HaMelech says, though an army would besiege me, my heart would not fear. The war would arise against me, in this I trust. So what is in this I trust? What does it mean here? So this is what we're going to talk about. In this I trust, says David HaMelech. What is this? The Midrash says that the word zot, this, means the Torah. What does he trust? He trusts in the Torah. Like we say, Sot Torah, right? Everybody sings it in shul, right? This is the Torah. When we lift up the open Torah scroll for the congregation to see, everybody says it, and you're looking at it, right? I'm looking at Sherry because Sherry's next to me when all this happens. And that light, the pasuk, means that David HaMelech feels confident in Hashem's protection. Why? Because he cleaves to Hashem's Torah. So we go back full circle to the idea at the beginning, right? If we have a Torah, if we have a blueprint where Hashem said how to live your life, what to do, what's going to be best for you. And we might not understand. Then what do you mean? This parsha, we have so much about this, right? First, we start with the spies, and then we have these mitzvahs, right? Tzitzis, and we have challah, right? It's all, the truth is, the whole thing is about bitachon. First of all, going back, the sin of the spies, the mistake of the spies, right? If Hashem guaranteed that you're leaving Mitzrayim to go to a land that I have promised you, and not only that he guaranteed, he gave you the promise, but throughout the time of your journey, he proved to you that he's reliable. He's doing this with you and for you. He smit the Mitzrayim with 10 plagues. He split the sea for you. He gave you man. He gave you everything you can imagine. He's doing it for you. Like, who's doing all these things if it's not Hashem? You're seeing it so, like, right? Sherry and I were discussing the other day, was the previous part. She was like, why are they always clutching? And I said, Sherry, we're no different. We're no different. Look at us. Hashem is constantly showering us. And we're, in Spanish, we say inconformes. I don't know how to say it in English, but like, it's never enough. And it's almost like a slap in the face. Huh? Right? Dissatisfied. But I think in Spanish, it has like an intensity. I don't know. I understand that better. I don't know. Dissatisfied. Okay, but yes, that's what it is. Right? So it's crazy. So in this parsha, so again, Hashem said, you're getting the land. Why? You want to send spies? I didn't tell you to send spies, but you want to send spies, send them for your soul. That's fine. Okay, so we send the spies, right? But then again, if you get instructions from Moshe Rabbeinu, right, who tells you, just give me a report, why are we coming back? Not only with a report, but let's throw in our opinion. Let's throw in all the doubts of how this is not going to work. You know what? He may have promised the land, but the truth is, they're going to eat us up alive. They're giants. The earth is going to swallow us up. There's no way we can do it. It's like, what are you talking about? Since when? Didn't you see that he's doing it with you? What, now this war he can't do? Now Hashem can't conquer the land with you, right? He can't help. Now I'm going to be involved in the land. I have to go to farm and plow the land. Oh, so Hashem is not going to be helping you right? So obviously we know there's a positive spin to this. And the Rebbe really was very emphatic about the fact that in a way they came from a very good place, meaning the place was, or the mistake, right? The mistake came from a desire to stay in a more spiritually refined place. The problem is, and that's a wonderful thing. But the mistake is that that's not what Hashem wants, right? Hashem doesn't want us in the desert with clouds of glory, learning Torah all day, getting our clothes laundered constantly, and our bread falling from heaven. No, that was just meant to be 1 year of transition, and then you're in to work the land, to bring godliness into the world. And that was such a fatal mistake. We didn't get it, right? The spies didn't get it. Obviously, Yehoshua and Caleb got it. The spies didn't get it, and everybody fell into a panic. And right, they also lost focus, right? Or the whole generation, even though they had seen so obviously the hand of Hashem, instantly the doubt set in, and they all went in a panic. And so they had to wander for 40 years in the desert. Until today, we're paying the price for this mistake, right? So the lesson is very important for us till today, okay? We can't say, why is Hashem making me work? And I don't have enough money. And this one is sick. And there's no good doctor. It's like, if we can understand, he wants us here. He wants us here. There's something you have to do right now with this challenge, with this situation, with these parents-in-law, with these children, with these, doctors, and with these bankers, and with this financial crisis, and whatever it is, this business is whatever it is. That's what he wants. That is what he wants. Yes, in it, you have to do it in a holy way. You have to do it in a way that reveals light, but you can't resent it. You can't go at it with resentment, because your mission is to do it here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been sent here. Otherwise, he would have kept your soul up above. But evidently, he needs you here. So wouldn't it be healthier to feel needed and to shift our own perspective and say, you know what, there must be a reason why I need to go through this. There must be a reason why this is my spouse. There must be a reason why these are my children or these are my in-laws, and turn everything around because you're needed in that situation, right? And so now our engagement with all the things in the world that you have to do, right, becomes there's a positivity about it, and there's even a levity about it. You know, it's like the sons of Aaron, right? The similar idea. Nadav and Avihu, what did they want? They wanted to stay connected to Hashem, but Hashem, you know, it can't be all like you can't just like be wanting in the cloud. You have to rise, but you have to go here. The reason to rise, to daven, to do all the spiritual things, is again to land here in a better way. So there's constantly this pull and this push, where the flame wants to go up, but there's this tension. It has to stay connected here. It has to, right? So that's the tension that the Jew lives in. But what we're suggesting is that when we're literally understanding that flame, that soul is connected to Hashem, and I can actually lean into that connection and rely and depend on Him, then I can, when I'm here, engaged here, I can actually do it from a place of, this is what I need to do. Right? This is actually part of my serving Hashem. This is actually part of my going upwards, right? Because there's no going upwards until the end. The soul wants to be here doing mitzvahs, right? That's why it says that the soul had a hard time coming down, but then at the end of the day, it doesn't want to go. It doesn't want to go because it cannot do the things that it can do here anymore. Once it's finished, it's finished. There's no, and now it learned that it wants to be here, right? So while we're here, let's try to make the most of it, and let's actually understand that Hashem who sent us here is reliable and dependable. He's not going to let us down. And the more we rely on Him, the more everything is going to be in the way that it's obvious to us. It's always good. The problem is how concealed is that good? But when a person has bitachon, that good actually becomes the concealment actually starts lifting off. So it's like lifting the veil. Okay. So going back to the text, this is the Torah. Okay. The pasuk means that David HaMelech feels confident that in Hashem's protection because he cleaves to Hashem's Torah. Another explanation is that the word zot refers back to a pasuk in the beginning of the chapter, in which David proclaims, Hashem is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Hashem is my life's strength, whom shall I dread? Right? We learn in Torah Bitachon, Gate of Trust. What does he say? Nobody can hurt you or harm you unless it's Hashem's will. Nobody has any power, right? And nobody can hasten or nobody can slow down what's meant to come for you. So there's no reason for you to try to find favor on other people and influence them or try to be connected to them and try to please them. They can't do anything. They're not going to give you your salary faster or your commission faster or whatever. You're not going to gain anything from anyone. You're going to get the money when you're meant to have the money. You're going to get what it cannot come any faster or any slower than what Hashem has decreed. Therefore, you can continue the straight path. You don't have to be codependent or needy or any of that, as it says in the Shar Bitachon, not in those words, obviously. He then goes on to state the threat. Evildoers approach me to devour my flesh, but he trusts in Hashem and believes that my enemies will stumble and fall. The fact that he's not afraid, meaning David, the fact that David is not afraid, even under threat, is this that saves him. As the Al-Shich says, fear is an indication of being disconnected from Hashem. David relies on Hashem, and his lack of fear solidifies the guarantee in which he is trusting. Right, so look at this. His lack of fear solidifies that guarantee in which he's trusting. Right, so when we studied the Beis HaLevi, the Maimer and Bitachon, the Beis HaLevi in the past, the Beis HaLevi actually has, which Shar Bitachon doesn't, but the Beis HaLevi has a lot on fear, right? And one of the things that we said is that fear is a natural emotion, obviously created by Hashem, and it comes to serve a purpose, and it's an alert, and sometimes it's very, very necessary. Now, what the Torah is warning us against, when it warns us against or tells us not to fear, and the command not to fear is, I think it's what's repeated in the Torah the most times. who told me the other day? Oh, I was at a conference and Miriam Lipsker mentioned it. Anyway, Altira or versions of that verse. So it's repeated many times in the Torah. So what is this all about? And we learned over there that yes, fear is a natural emotion, but what we're being cautioned against is allowing the fears to now take real estate in our mind, right? To envelop us and consume us. Sherry, you're davening mincha. I see her sitter. Maybe she's looking for the word for fear or something. Oh, you're looking at the pasuk. Altira mipachad pisam at the end of davening. Yeah, exactly. Good job, Sherry. Beautiful. Very good. So what we're saying, what the Torah is warning us about is to now allow the brain, right? Moach shalit alav lev. The brain controls the emotions. Okay. So now that emotion comes to tell you there's a danger. But if the danger is real, if there's a bear out to get you, then yes, you run. And that's a very helpful fear at that moment. It's going to get you to do something. Now, if the danger is not real, you have to use your brain and say, oh, wait, there's Hashem with me. Hashem is with me right now, right? I have to rely on him. And this is so hard. And that's what I was trying to explain to you the other day, that I was having this whole conversation the whole time, because I knew physically I was nervous. I knew the whole time on the plane I was nervous. I knew when I got to the Ohel, I was I don't know that anybody could tell, but I knew my physical body, right, was a wreck, which meant that obviously my brain was a wreck, because my body is they're one, right? My body is responding to my mental state that is causing the emotions, that's causing my, like, even physically I didn't feel okay, right? And part of my conversation is, Hashem, allow me to trust you. I know I don't have to panic about this, right? And it was that constant battle of saying, I'm okay. I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. I've always been okay. And it took praying, and it took, like I said, davening a mincha, that I like shed tears, and it took going into the ohel, and it took coming out, and then it's like, okay, I like, I'm done now. I'm going onwards. But it's a real thing. And so here David is saying, right, that he is not going to, he's not afraid. He's not afraid. And that's something that we have to work on, right? When the threat comes, are we going to be afraid or not? Are we going to allow this to consume us? Or are we going to say, you know what, this is a problem in the natural order of things? Doesn't Hashem know how to take care of it? Of course he does. Of course he does. I cannot allow it to now consume me. I have to trust that he's going to take care of it, because evidently I don't have the physical capacity to take care of it. I don't have the shidduch for my child now. Now, am I supposed to now allow this whole thing to consume me day and night with worry and a whole drama that I'm not going to marry off my child? That's ridiculous. I can't do that. Or I have a loan to pay. Okay, so you have a loan to pay. Good, you do the responsible thing, and you slowly try to take care of the loan, but you can't allow it to consume your entire mind. You have a child to marry off, right? We have to, and like, even share it with health is actually the most challenging thing. That is obviously, like I told you always in the class, guys, money problems are not, it's a joke, okay? Real problems are real problems. But even with that, we can take Sherry's example, because she has so many good ones, right? Even the doctor is saying to your face, you have this diagnosis, and da-da-da-da-da. Are we going to panic, or are we going to say, Hashem, the doctors are your agents. They don't have any power to give me any diagnosis. I'm going straight to you, right? You're going to take care of this, that there's nothing in my body, that it's going to be okay. Right? That's a lot of work, but that's what bitachon demands. That's what the relationship demands. Because again, it's your father. It's your father who can do anything. So why am I now only thinking about the doctor, but the doctor said, and the doctor said, and the doctor said, and it just, this whole fear and panic of the doctor's words, like, consumes you. The work is trying to push that away, and then saying, no, all that consumes me is Hashem, 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 which is why we learn this every single week, and some of us every single day, right? So that, again, the brain can take us anytime the fear comes in, anytime that threat of the bear, which is not a real bear, comes, we can take the brain, and the brain can actually, we can divert it to, oh, Hashem is kind, Hashem has love and pity and mercy for me. Hashem has always been with me. He's attentive, he's 24/7, all the qualities, right? And go to Hashem instead of going to a place of fear and panic and going on a mental loop. Okay, so in the next pasuk, we find another explanation of this. David says, one thing I asked of Hashem, that I dwell in the house of Hashem all the days of my life. All of David's great feats and endeavors have just one goal, you guys, which is serve Hashem, which is to serve Hashem. That's the whole goal. And that really should be our goal also, right? We're here, we're engaged in the world, we're making a beautiful world, everybody in their own way. It's all because Hashem sent me, because Hashem sent me, right? I'm just here to do my job because I work for the CEO. That's it. That's the only person I work for. That's it. That's the way we have to see it. I only work for the boss, the real boss, Hashem. He's not looking to aggrandize his own name, meaning David, but only to honor Hashem's name. This, when the pasuk says this, is what he can count on to bring Hashem's protection and salvation. So serving Hashem, that's what protects him, right? He counts on Hashem. That's it, because that's all that's in the person's mind, is they're completely dedicated. Like it's a godly consciousness that it's through and through constantly. That, again, this is work. The Pele Yoetz adds another dimension. He says that anytime the word enemy is used in Tehillim, it can have two coexisting meanings: physical enemies and spiritual enemies. David HaMelech prayed for salvation on both fronts. Trusting in Hashem and cleaving to the Torah are the answers to both threats, as this story by a Shemitah farmer illustrates. So I'm going to tell you the story. It's actually a very good story. It's a little bit long. Hopefully I won't mess it up. But basically this man, and I heard it, I think on Stories to Inspire. I heard it a while ago. So I was very happy to hear it, to read it again in this book. So basically there's this man who keeps Shemitah in his farm in Eretz Israel. He allows the land to rest on the 7th year, to lay fallow. So he said, you know what, I can't just sit there. I decided that this year, instead of sitting there and learning Torah there, we're going to go in a shlichut. We're going to go do something productive in another country. So we're going to go travel to America like an ambassador. And his wife she went and she took a job with the Jewish agency as a teacher at a school in New Jersey. And they were very happy with doing this. Just they come from Eretz Israel, they're going to serve the Jews in the diaspora. Beautiful. But the agency said that they couldn't send them unless he had a job as well. So what job is he going to get? So his wife tells him, you know what, go to El Al and go apply for a job. So they gave him a job in the cargo security section at Newark Airport. So now they both have a job in New Jersey, and he moves close to the job and he starts working. And his supervisor at El Al, this was before the days that El Al ownership turned into a Shomer Shabbos company. So they wanted him to work on Shabbat. Now this Shemitah, this farmer, he's Shomer Shabbat farmer. He's keeping Shemitah. He's not going to work on Shabbat. So he said, look, he said to the guy who he understood that the supervisor is not budging on this. So he went to the guy who organizes the shifts for the cargo workers, to put him any day he wanted, to put him a shift, right? Sherry, you can relate to this because you used to do this with your team. Any day he wanted, but Fridays and Saturday nights even, but no way on Shabbat per se. He cannot work on Shabbat. Okay, so this worked for a little bit, a few weeks. They were accommodating, but then the supervisor on top, the guy who really wanted him to work on Shabbat, he noticed that he wasn't there, and he said that this guy needed to be scheduled for shifts like every other worker. And he told the scheduler, look, I am not doing it. You can put me down, but I'm not going to come to work. And he said, fine, but then you have to report to the supervisor because there's nothing I can do. Like my command is I have to schedule you. You know, if you don't show up, then it's you and the supervisor. So there's the law in America and in Israel that if you don't want to work on your holidays, they can't fire you. So they couldn't actually fire him. What started to happen is they started to sabotage him and started to build a case against him. They started to build something against him to actually be able to find a way to fire him. They started making a claim that he was unprofessional. So after 5 or 6 weeks of the whole story, the supervisor called him in and he said that he was unprofessional, and that because he was unprofessional, it was dangerous to allow him to continue to work there in the cargo department of El Al, and he was going to send them to the worldwide security director of El Al. Okay, So now they fly him to Israel. The guy's in New Jersey. They make trouble for him. They send him to Israel to go meet the security director. And he goes to have this meeting on a Thursday morning. And he's supposed to and he has the meeting. And he says, the security director says, do you know why they sent you here? And he says, yeah, because I don't work on Shabbat. And he says, no, they didn't send you here because you don't work on Shabbat. They sent you here because you're not safe. You're not professional. So it's not safe to have you doing your work. And he said, look, if that's what you think, then just fire me. And he says, how can you say that? You have a house in America, you have kids, you have a contract. And the Shemitah farmer says, I don't care about that. If you don't think I'm doing a good job, just fire me. And the security director in El Al says, no, I'm not going to fire you. I'm just going to let the Israeli consulate handle this. You're going to be called into the consulate in Manhattan in 2 weeks to have a hearing with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Can you imagine how complex this is getting? Okay, because El Al workers are actually paid by the Israeli government. So, okay, fine. So he's scheduled to have a meeting in 2 weeks in Manhattan. And this security director says, in the meantime, don't go to work because it's not safe to have you there. According to the papers, it's not safe to have you there. Therefore, don't go to work, but you're going to keep getting your salary. Okay? So you're going to keep getting the salary. So he left the meeting. He went to visit his parents, a few friends, and he went back to America. And on his way back to America on the plane, he started to think, wow, well, this is crazy. How am I going to do this, stay in America and support the family in America without a job? How am I going to pay the bills, the rent? What's going to be? Okay, so he arrives home. And the next morning, he gets a phone call from the organization that helps Shemitah farmers, Keren HaShviyis, the great organization. And how did they get his number? They don't know. I don't know, whatever. They know who the Shemitah farmers are, but they reach out to him. Why did they reach out to him all the way in America? Is because they were looking for a farmer who would go in the different schools and communities to teach the people and the children about Shemitah. And they asked him if he would do it and if he was available. And he said, actually, funny you mention it, because now I am. Because again, he can't show up at work. So he's fired, but he's not really fired because they're still supposedly going to pay him, but he doesn't know for how long they're going to pay him. So he is available. So they said, okay, great. How much money do you want to go on this shlichut and going into the different schools and teaching the children about Shemitah? So he said, look, I just need whatever this amount of money is to cover my bills and food for my family. So he starts working for Keren HaShviyis, and he starts working for them for a year. And it turns out that the Israeli consulate only called them for the hearing 4 or 5 months later. They continued to pay for the guy's salary and his health insurance. And when he finally shows up for the hearing, okay, so imagine the miracle. So the guy is all because of the Shemitah. You understand what's happening here, right? Hashem says, if you lay the land, if you lay the land fallow, you're going to be blessed. That's it. You're going to be taken care of, no question. And look what's happening here. He finally goes for the hearing, and he goes, and it's actually a very nice lady. And the lady who's doing the hearing from the Israeli consulate also has the old supervisor, the one that got him into this whole trouble, who wanted to get him in trouble. And he thinks that the supervisor is waiting for this Israeli consulate to take his side and start yelling at him for, not being a good employee or whatever. But she turns to him and he says, so I heard already everything your supervisor had to say. What do you have to say for yourself? And he says, look, all I have to say is that I came to America for 1 year. I have no plans to stay here. All I ask is that I keep my visa until the end of the school year in June so that my kids can finish school. And the day after the kids finish in school in America, I'm leaving, I'm going home. And he started telling him a little bit about what he has going on at home, that he lives near Gaza and he keeps Shemitah. And the lady opens her eyes wide and she gets all enthusiastic, and he sees that she's getting all excited. And she says, you know what? Not only am I going to leave you the visa, you're going to keep your visa, but I'm going to make sure that you have money and that you have a job. So she called in her assistant and she told the assistant to take the guy's number and to make sure that he has everything that he needs and to find him another job. And the supervisor went ballistic, and it wasn't what he was expected. And in the end, he got the job, and he was also working for the Keren HaShviyis. And when he was on the plane back to Eretz Israel, he saw his old supervisor, the one that got furious now when they actually allowed him to stay, and they even helped him get another job and whatever. And he saw him on the plane, and he said hello, and he kept moving. And later he called his friends in Newark airport that he used to work with, and he mentioned that he saw the guy on the plane, and they said that he had been fired. So, I mean, that's not the nice part of the story. We don't want somebody else to be hurt, but it's just a funny story of how this Shemitah person is saying how everything ended up working out. He said, this is one of the many miracles that I have witnessed just from keeping Shemitah. So again, you do what Hashem, so we go back to the original topic as we started. We do what Hashem wants, and Hashem is going to take care of us and care of us, but we have to trust. The problem with when we don't trust, right? When we start wavering and right? If we have to go all in and see, oh, there's an obstacle. Okay, but like, I'm not going to get consumed by the obstacle, right? Like the Meraglim went, the spies went, oh, they're giants. I don't have to make a whole story about them being giants. They're giants. Now I have Hashem on my side, right? I don't have to now, oh, how they said, well, they saw us as grasshoppers because we saw ourselves as grasshoppers, right? If you start seeing yourself as, I cannot handle this world, that's what you're going to get. But when we say, no, you know what? I'm here with Hashem, right? I work for the boss. I'm walking. It's like you're walking in with a king, right? Then, okay, fine. They could be giants. They could be, and I don't have to feel like a grasshopper. Okay. All right. So that is our class for today. Any comments, questions, or stories? We're good? Okay, wonderful, ladies. So I will see you all next week, and have a good Shabbos. Oh, Mara, you have a question.
Hi, thank you. A quick question. So in case they needed it, was that...
So the truth is, he mentions in this book, I never heard that midrash that they went with arms. It was the first time that I heard it, but I think his point is that they were they had arms, but they weren't like, it's not the arms that's going to, it's like when Yaakov went to battle Esau, right? He also prepared for war. He prayed, he prepared for war, and he sent gifts, right? You have to do your ishtadlus. That's a point. You have to do what you have to do, but that's not what's going to win the battle. Hashem is going to win the battle. Right? At the end, they didn't need the arms because Hashem split the sea. They know exactly. And even when we have to do it through natural means, just like now, we have to fight. Right? We can't say, oh, our boys and our girls have to, unfortunately, go engage in battle. But they engage in battle knowing that Hashem is the one fighting the battle with them. It's not whether they have the arm. And didn't we see so many stories at the beginning that they had old armament, old weapons? Because October 7th, what do you mean? There was nothing, right? There wasn't, the army, the IDF wasn't prepared, right? And there were so many stories a soldier was saying, like, I could tell you my gun or my rifle wasn't working. It wasn't a working rifle. I don't know how it worked. And it was like that for all of us in the unit. Okay, think of it. This is the first week, okay? So that's the consciousness. The consciousness is we have to go and do it. There's no not doing it. You have to go, and you have to go with whatever arms you have, and hopefully it's the best arms. Like, we can't say, oh, Hashem. No, you have to go. You have to go. You have to go get an education. You have to get yourself prepared. You can't rely and say, no, Hashem gave you a talent and a capability. Hashem puts you in a situation. You have to prepare yourself, and you have to go, right? Yaakov knew that he was fighting Esau. He needed to prepare for war, right? But he prayed. He first prayed, he prepared, and he sent gifts, right? He used the natural world and relied on Hashem to fight for him, right? So we live this today, right? So it seems from this example that you're asking, which is the first time I heard it, it seems like that's the same idea. They had to prepare. They would have used it. Look, we had to fight Amalek in the desert, right? We had to fight Amalek. But the whole battle was also Hashem was fighting the battle with us, and we see that even in the Torah Bitachon, also in the beginning, in the introduction, when it talks about the fact that that it's not the mighty who win the war, right? We have so many examples in our history, from Hanukkah, from the Yom Kippur War, from the Six-Day War. Like, we see it over and over again. Not that these have been pleasant times, and of course we've had a lot of tragedy and whatever, but we see that it doesn't make any rational sense that you have the entire Arab world going against a tiny nation, right? The War of Independence, and a nation of Holocaust survivors didn't have, what do they have? Right? You have to go, whatever you have available, you have to go and fight. But it's obvious that Hashem fights the battles of the Jewish people. It's completely obvious, right? So that's the same thing with us. We have to know that Hashem is with us, and we have to engage in the world, but it's Hashem who's doing it. There's nothing that's actually, Hashem is doing it with us, and we have to rely that he's there with us, okay?
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much.
Amazing. Okay, ladies.
Thank you so much. Shabbat shalom.